The heavy oak door of the penthouse slammed shut, the click of the deadbolt echoing the finality of a life Eliza never truly possessed. She stood in the opulent hallway, the sterile marble cold beneath her thin slippers. The biting November rain lashed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, a stark contrast to the sterile, silent warmth of the lobby. She didn't know it yet, but this ending was the only way her real life could begin. "Get out," Marcus said. His voice, usually smooth and commanding, was flat, annoyed. He threw a small duffel bag at her feet. "My lawyers have already filed. You're getting nothing." Claire, his vice president, stood beside him, wrapped in his cashmere robe. She smirked, her eyes scanning Eliza's simple silk robe with triumph. "Marcus, please," Eliza whispered, her voice shaking. She adjusted her grip on their 3-month-old daughter, Lily, who had started to wail. "Think of Lily. This is our home." Claire let out a short, cold laugh. "This was never your home, dear," Claire cooed, stepping forward. "It was a rental. And your lease is up." Marcus looked at his wife, the black woman he'd once paraded as his most beautiful acquisition, and his face twisted into pure disgust. "I told you when I met you that you were a mistake. You're low-class, uneducated." He spat, the words hitting her harder than a slap. "You were never going to fit in here." He gestured vaguely at the priceless art, the Boston skyline. "You brought nothing to this, and you're taking nothing out." He emphasized the word nothing, and in that moment, Eliza knew he wasn't just talking about money. He was talking about her race, her background, her very existence. Numbly, she pulled out her phone, her fingers fumbling with the bank app. Account frozen. A notification glowed. "Marcus, I can't even." She fumbled in her robe pocket and pulled out the $23 she'd had from the market. "This is all I have." He actually laughed. "That's more than you're worth." He signaled to the 2 security guards by the elevator. "Escort her out." The men she had smiled at every day, gripped her arms. They didn't meet her eyes. They walked her through the lobby, past the towering, soulless Thanksgiving display, and past the doorman, who suddenly found the rain outside incredibly fascinating. He refused to look at her. Standing on the curb in the pouring rain, Eliza watches Marcus's silhouette laugh as he closes the blinds. She is homeless, penniless, and holding her sick child. Eliza is at her lowest point, thrown into the cold rain by the man who was supposed to protect her. But this is far from the end of her story. It's the beginning of her fight. If you are still watching and you are standing with Eliza, please comment with the number 8 below to let us know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed to Black King yet, I strongly recommend you do and hit that notification bell. We are committed to telling powerful stories of resilience, and you do not want to miss the justice that is coming. Your support helps us continue to create amazing content that informs and inspires. Now let's get back to the story. The flickering neon sign of the Beacon Motel was the only light that wasn't judging her. The $23 had been just enough for one night in the cheapest room, a room that smelled of stale cigarettes and despair. She hadn't slept. She sat on the stained bedspread, Lily asleep in her arms, and watched the gray morning light creep in. She had 1 serving of formula left. 1. She remembered her mother saying, "Kindness always finds you, child, but you have to be looking for it." Right now, kindness felt as distant as the penthouse. She looked at her reflection in the cracked mirror, the nothing Marcus had described. But then she looked down at Lily's tiny, perfect face, and something cold settled into her chest, pushing out the fear. Rage. The next morning, desperate, she entered May's Corner, a small diner near the motel. The bell on the door chimed. It was the complete opposite of the motel, warm, clean, and smelling of fresh coffee, cinnamon, and baking pumpkin pie. Thanksgiving pre-orders were scrawled on a chalkboard. She saw a small help wanted sign taped to the register. A woman in her mid-60s, with a stern face and the kindest eyes Eliza had ever seen, looked up from the counter. This was May. May saw Eliza, saw the baby, saw the desperation, and didn't ask a single question. "You look like you've been through it," May said, her voice a low rumble. She came around the counter, gently took Lily from Eliza's arms, and nodded toward the formula. "Go ahead and fix that. I'll get you a hot biscuit. You're no good to her starving." Eliza's eyes burned with tears. I I don't have much money. May just waved her hand dismissively. Eliza pointed to the help wanted sign. I'm a hard worker. May nodded, shifting the baby expertly. It's just dishwasher. Cash. $15 an hour. My Thanksgiving orders are through the roof and my regular girl is sick. May gestured with her chin toward a playpen in the back office, already set up. You can keep the baby there. Can you start now? Minutes later, Eliza was in the back, holding a warm cup of coffee May had pressed into her hands. She scrubbed dishes, the hot water a comfort on her cold hands, as Lily slept peacefully in the playpen. The smell of baking pie filled the kitchen. It was the first time she had felt safe in 24 hours. While cleaning, Eliza finds an old newspaper. On the front page is Marcus, smiling at a charity gala with the headline, Boston's Tech King pledges millions to city shelter. The hypocrisy steals her breath. For 2 weeks, Eliza's world shrank to the 100-foot walk between the motel and May's kitchen. She'd saved enough cash from May to buy formula, pay for the motel in advance, and even buy a warm coat from the local thrift store. But it wasn't sustainable. As she scrubbed pots, she kept remembering her old finance degree, the one Marcus had told her to abandon. A pretty thing like you, he'd slurred at a cocktail party, doesn't need to worry about numbers. He wanted her as an accessory, not a partner. May's corner was busier now, in the week leading up to Thanksgiving. The air was filled with small talk about family arrivals and travel plans, and the scent of baking pies was constant. Amid the chatter, Eliza noticed a new regular. A man in his mid-40s, with sharp, intense eyes and a worn trench coat. He came in every day, sat in the same corner booth, ordered black coffee, and stared for hours at a laptop. He tipped well but never smiled. One afternoon, while refilling his coffee, Eliza glanced at his screen. She froze. He was looking at Cole Technologies' public SEC filings. Later, David, as she learned his name was from May, overheard 2 customers complaining about that billionaire fraud Marcus. He looked up, his expression hardening. As he was packing up to leave, Eliza wiped down her hands and stopped him at the door. You're investigating Marcus Cole, aren't you? David was stunned. He looked at her, truly saw her for the first time. Who are you? I'm his wife, Eliza said, her voice low. The one he kicked out. David ushered her into the booth, his eyes scanning the cafe. I'm a private consultant, he said, revealing he was ex-FBI, Financial Crimes Division. I've been hired by his competitors. I know he's cooking the books. I know he and Claire are moving money. But I'm missing the internal proof. He's too smart. Eliza hesitated. Why you? David looked down at his cup. Look, this isn't just a job. Men like Marcus, who think they're gods. One of them destroyed my sister's life. Legally, financially. He ruined her. He looked up, his eyes meeting hers. I make it my mission to prove they're not gods. The shared pain, the understanding, made Eliza trust him. He thinks I'm stupid, she said, the rage returning, cold and clear. He forgot I was halfway through my MBA when I met him. And he forgot to change the password on his private archival storage unit downtown. David's eyes widened. Eliza, if you go in there, it's a felony. You could lose your daughter forever. Eliza is now faced with an impossible choice. Play it safe, or risk losing her daughter forever to get the justice she deserves. This is the ultimate turning point. If you are still watching and you believe in Eliza's courage, please comment with the number 8 below to let me know you are here supporting her. And if you haven't subscribed, this is the moment. We share powerful stories of resilience and strategy every week here on Black Brilliance. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, because you do not want to miss what happens inside that storage unit. Your support helps us continue to create amazing content that informs and inspires you. Now let's get back to the story. The click of the storage unit's lock springing open sounded louder than a gunshot in the silent, fluorescent-lit hallway. It was 2 a.m., the week of Thanksgiving. Eliza's breath plumed in the cold air. David had warned her that Marcus often used this unit for archiving old mistakes. She was about to find out she wasn't his first, but she would be his last. She'd left Lily with May, who had simply nodded, her face grim. You do what you have to do, child. She'll be safe here. David was 2 blocks away in his car, acting as lookout. His last text read, "One text equals get out now. Be safe." Eliza rolled up the heavy door. The code, Lily's original due date, had worked. The unit was filled with old servers, boxes of hard drives, and neatly labeled bankers' boxes. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but her mind was sharp. Her finance degree, her MBA studies, it all came rushing back. David had taught her the buzzwords offshore, shell core, vendor X. She moved quickly, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. She found a box labeled VC Contingency. Claire. Her hands shook as she opened it. It wasn't love letters. It was a paper trail. Marcus wasn't just hiding money. He was setting Claire up to take the fall if he ever got caught. He had built a cage for his mistress, just as he had for his wife. Then she saw it, a portable hard drive labeled Mistakes. She plugged it into the small device David had given her. The screen lit up. It was everything. Folders on folders. $50 million in embezzled funds, routed through phantom companies. Fake invoices. And the emails. Emails between Marcus and Claire, plotting the fraud, laughing about how the wife would get nothing. As she copied the final file, the ding of the elevator echoed down the hall. Eliza's blood ran cold. She killed the flashlight and hid behind a tall server rack, holding her breath, clutching the drive. She heard footsteps. A security guard, doing his rounds, shined his flashlight into her unit, the beam sweeping just inches from her feet. He paused, then, satisfied, moved on. Back in David's car, safe, she plugged the drive into his laptop. He looked at the screen, his face pale. Eliza, this is more than fraud. This is one of the biggest financial crimes in the state's history. The morning news anchors couldn't say Cole Technologies fast enough. The company that was the pride of Boston yesterday was its biggest scandal today. The raid had happened at 9 a.m. In May's corner, May turned up the volume on the small TV mounted in the corner. She looked over at Eliza, who was quietly wiping down the counter, her hands steady. May didn't say a word, but her eyes were full of profound understanding. "The harvest always comes, child," she said, just loud enough for Eliza to hear. The news footage was chaotic. FBI agents, identifiable by their blue jackets, were carrying boxes out of the opulent lobby of Cole Technologies. Employees were stunned, huddled in the street. A financial reporter, standing in the rain, explained that an anonymous whistleblower had provided irrefutable proof of massive securities fraud, embezzlement, and offshore tax evasion. The stock was frozen. Marcus Cole was in custody. Eliza watched the footage of Marcus being let out in handcuffs. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a mask of pure, confused rage. He was shouting, but the audio was muted by the reporter. A few minutes later, they showed Claire, also in handcuffs, looking calculated and frightened. Eliza felt a quiet, solemn victory. It wasn't joy. It was the simple, heavy feeling of justice. Her phone buzzed. It was David. "It's done," he said, his voice tired but firm. "You were right about the contingency box. We showed Claire the evidence that Marcus was setting her up to be the scapegoat. She flipped instantly. Agreed to testify against him in exchange for a reduced sentence. The woman he threw Eliza out for, the woman who had smirked as Eliza was dragged away, had just buried him to save herself. Later that day, Marcus, released on an astronomical bail, held a press conference. He stood there, in his perfect suit, his eyes panicked. He blamed disgruntled employees and vindictive ex-wife for the misunderstanding. Eliza, watching him lie on the small TV at the motel, turned it off. Her phone rang again. It was the lawyer David had helped her hire. "Eliza," the lawyer said, her voice crisp. "The judge just reviewed the fraud evidence and the proof that Marcus hid those assets from the court. The prenup is officially null and void. We're going to trial." 1 year later, Eliza stood in the same penthouse foyer she had been thrown out of. Only this time, she was holding the deed. The $15 million settlement had been substantial, but buying this specific penthouse at the seized asset auction, that was poetic justice. The view Marcus stole was now hers to give. The penthouse was unrecognizable. The cold, sterile white and chrome had been replaced with warm woods, rich colors and soft lighting. The walls were covered in vibrant art by Black artists, and baby toys were scattered artfully in a corner. Eliza was different, too. She was no longer the shrinking wife. She was the founder and CEO of Eliza Interiors, already named one of the top Black-owned businesses in the state. On the coffee table, next to a vase of lilies, sat a small, framed news clipping. Marcus Cole found guilty. 18 years in federal prison. David, now her husband, walked into the room, holding a giggling, walking Lily on his hip. Theirs was a relationship built on partnership, not ownership. She's ready for her guest of honor, David smiled. Eliza turned as May walked in, holding a wrapped gift for Lily's first birthday party. May looked around the magnificent room, her eyes landing on Eliza. She smiled, a slow, proud smile. "I always knew you had this in you, child," May said, pulling her into a hug. "The good Lord always pays his debts." Later, as the party wound down, Eliza sorted through the mail. Tucked between catalogs was a letter from a federal prison. It was from Marcus, begging her for money for his commissary, calling her vindictive, blaming her for his downfall. She read the first line, then fed the letter into the shredder. He was irrelevant. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, the same windows she had looked out of with despair. She looked down at the Boston skyline, not as something she was shut out of, but as something she now owned a piece of. David joins her at the window, kissing her forehead. "What are you thinking about?" Eliza smiles, just enjoying the view. In the end, Eliza's story isn't just about reclaiming a penthouse view. It's about the quiet, unshakable power of a woman who knew her own worth, even when the world told her she had none. It's a powerful reminder that when we judge others by their appearance or background, we often miss the truth of who they are. Just like May's kindness in the cold November, a simple act of compassion can be the shelter that changes everything. If this story of resilience touched your heart, please share your reflections in the comments below, and consider following the Black King channel for more stories that uplift and inspire.